Hello, and thank you again for joining us here at Autistic Radio. And thank you also to coldpack.co.uk for sponsoring the programme and keeping the lights on. If you're a practitioner that requires a cryotherapy product that advertises your own practice, then coldpack.co.uk is the website to go to have them printed for you. Or if you're an end user, everything you spend on that website comes here to us to keep us making these programs for you. So thank you to Coldpack. Harry, what do we have today on the 555?
Thanks, Jules. Hello, everyone. This is Harry's Facebook for Sunday, the 23rd of August 2026, and this is where we go through and discuss the recent Facebook posts on the Autistic Radio page. And as always, we start with a poem. And the poem is called The Good Fight, written by Emily Faith Grodin in 2021. If you were to ask all the ways in which I have felt the need to scratch at and fight with and challenge, I could write a novel, speak for hours on end on those ways, because I still fight every day to live life the way I want to. The world does not bend for me. Instead, I bend to fit the world. When there is no place for me that I am able to see, I make one, for all deserve the chance to be. I will still fight if I have to, still scream if need be. If life won't be what I need, I'll fight to make it right for me. What's people's thoughts?
You have to you have to remember that the world is not going to be the world you want, because it's one versus what, 8 billion, even with all the people with autism in the world. You it's we've had this before in the past with someone who said they just want me to be compliant, they want compliance, and you're just not going to get there. You're going to have to compromise, and you are going to get some things, but some things you're not going to get. And sometimes there's a fight, and sometimes there's a pointless fight, and you just have to be aware of it. And it might be tough, but that's unfortunately how it is.
I was thinking that I really, when something's very, very important, it's going to be addressed when the arts start to address it. So sometimes it could be wars, it could be famines, who knows what it is. But this is a very nice poem because it's quite universal. She's not really saying what it's about exactly. We know. All kinds of other artists would, or poetry readers would be able to identify with this and for some other reason than autism. And I think that's when you do something autistic, how it's art is sometimes helps other people to really understand you.
Just for some background, Emily Grodin is a college student studying journalism, psychology, and creative writing, and has been recognised for her academic achievement. She recently co authored I Have Been Buried Under Years of Dust, a memoir of autism and hope, with her mother, Valerie, Valerie Gilpia. Emily is an advocate for herself and members of her community in an effort to dispel the misconceptions and known acceptance of those with autism. And she has her own website as well. But on to the poem itself, I found it very striking because I feel in many ways my journey is that word fight, that word or that feeling of trying to fit in, bend in, because the world doesn't bend in with you. And for so many years, my own experience was it was an injustice, it was this, it was that, everything negative. But over time, the confidence in me, and obviously with support with family, and also with the support I have, being part of Autistic Radio, is part of that. People, who are autistic as well, with their own experiences. It's like there's a more positive way of kind of living and moving forward. But there's always that feeling within that there's a bit of fight always going on. Not always like fighting, shouting, and screaming, but just being fighting in terms of being inspirational for people and being showing people that autism isn't the dire thing that is sometimes or quite a lot of the time demonstrated in the media.
I think using the word fight is interesting because it's not fight as in the sense of war here mostly, is it? It's about it being hard, it being a task, something we have to fight. We have to weaponize ourselves so that we get the opportunity to be real to ourselves and not just give in, not just bend everything to fit in with society. So there's that sense that there's a resistance to a society that tries to make us fit to a norm when we want to say our norm is perfectly normal as it is. Our autism is part of normal.
I feel also there's a particularly with myself, it kind of like a fight with myself sometimes, like fighting to have to go through some of those emotions in order to make things happen. So I have to go into the world and behave as the world behaves. And sometimes it's not a comfortable space to be in at all. And sometimes I can just about do it, and sometimes I can't. But sometimes I have this fight with myself over whether I can actually get out the door today or do what I need to do today, and or whether I can people basically.
Yeah, I know that feeling well. I mean, it's part of the commitments that I do. When I say commitments, it's things that I like to do. Community work. The local Tenants and Residents Association deliver dog poo bags, free, to people's addresses to obviously handle the issue of the large cost what it can be, and obviously to deal with the dog fouling issue. And the point is I get messages sent to me, any time to ask for me to deliver them, whenever I can. And I got a message today, and instead of going out today and deliver it, and it's not that far, it's round the corner, I just didn't feel that I was ready to go outside. Now, I might not meet anybody apart from the person I'm giving the bags to, but it feels like the peopling side of things always seems to be a bit of a challenge, a bit of a fight sometimes. Not in a bad way, but it's just something that if I can avoid it or manage it in a certain way, it's like it's something I need to do just to basically rest. And the reason that's the case is because this weekend I was in my friend's house, staying the night with his family, and quite a busy house, nice house, full of pets and children, and it was great, don't get me wrong, but it was a lot to take in. And before that, I met up with other friends sitting in a busy cafe, and then also sitting in a busy pub, because it was the weekend. So it was just like today was like, I need to take a rest from all the things around, because the world's a very busy, bustful place, even when it's positive, and it's nice to rest from that. And it just feels like that's not fighting against the world, but fighting to, maintain, composure. Let's see in the chat. Fight is making, no, fight as in making enormous effort. And I think we can all kind of identify with that in one way or another. And also there's resistance, which I totally agree as well. So there we are. Such is life, or such as autistic life. The next post is from Pete Warmby, autistic author, an autistic and ADHD award-winning writer and speaker on autism and autistic lived experience, author of What I Want to Talk About, Untypical and Different Minds. And what I've shared from Pete is he shared two things. He shared a quote, a metaphor, and he's also shared some information on the post. The one thing I want to look at first is what he shared in the post itself, the text. And he says, the BBC media comparing autistic people with no co-occurring learning disability with autistic people with a co-occurring learning disability, pretending like it's some kind of mystery that shows autism is misdiagnosed, is utterly disgusting and bewilderingly ignorant. It'd be like showing a person who is left-handed and short-sighted and another person who is left-handed and not short-sighted, and using this to question the existence of left-handedness. It is honestly that daft, and doesn't withstand any scrutiny at all, and yet is everywhere. It is erasing those with learning disabilities, pretending like that autism pretending like that's autism when it isn't. This is dangerous, as in terms of support, viewing the very specific experiences of those with very specific learning disabilities as just autism causes huge problems with misapplied supports. It also raises those who are just autistic or AUDHD or another combination. It is awful and totally unnecessary. I am so tired. What's people's thoughts? Are people aware of what he's discussing?
Yes. Uta Frith has put forward very publicly the idea that somebody like myself is not autistic because I do not have a learning disability, or I do not have such a difficulty in society that crosses a threshold that she thinks is unhelpful. She thinks it's unhelpful for people like myself to identify as autistic. I can understand that somebody who has been working in a field for decades and has been fighting to have autism actually accepted as something that is real, because originally autism was not accepted as a thing, however that thing was defined. I can accept that somebody who's been doing that for so many years has difficulty seeing it progress, and progress in a way that feels out of their control. I can also empathise with some of the things that she says, that diverting attention to people like me is unhelpful for people who really need support and help from our society. However, I'm not taking anything away from people with desperate need. I'm not taking services away from children that require support and families that need that support. I'm an autistic man who is actually adding to the whole process. We all are here at Autistic Radio. We work to support ourselves and make other adults who are late diagnosed have somewhere to go to. So it's a shame that we have to be black and white about these things. The autism world isn't black and white. Autistic people are quite willing to accept a wide range of differences, a wide range of different definitions of autism. But Uta Frith and her ilk are still stuck back there in a black and white world. And that's unfortunate.
It's hard for people like Uta Frith, who've been doing it for so long, to let a new thought in. If they didn't hang on so tight to what they were thinking, they could easily let the new thoughts in. Also, I think that it is important what Ray is asking in the comments, because I don't have any language issues or learning issues, but I have a lot of social issues. And honest to God, I've been a director of a publicly traded company, and I can't do the simplest things in life and make life work. So I don't really give a shit what people like Uta Frith think. We need to be here and we need to be heard. We're really disabled. We just don't look like it when we go to work or whatever.
And we make major life decisions due to that disability, which is almost hidden because of masking and fitting in. I've been going back over some things and thinking like, yeah, I made all those decisions because of this difficulty in living that kind of life.
Or we have to live with terrible wrong diagnoses that are really, really also not accepted in society. And so it's not anything that is wrong with those diagnoses, but they're not ours.
I'm thinking more about all the things you're supposed to do, like even relationships. You're supposed to be there, put up with certain things, deal with it. There's no alternative almost coded into that life. And when you make decisions based on that, they're not necessarily all that good for you.
I think it's a pigeonholing thing. It's like for a society to work according to the people who say they run society, they need to keep things simple. So individualism, which they probably think is an absolute pain in the backside, doesn't come into it. And the thing that's really annoying me, even though I haven't looked into what's really been said in great detail, but I'm seeing the headlines to a degree, and of course we've shared it here a few times, is like there's this that overdiagnosis or identification of autism and other things. And it's like people are making an excuse to make their life easier and not to pull their weight. And that's the attitude. It's like, oh, there's people saying they're autistic even though they're not really struggling because they don't want to work. So they want the government, or they want someone to help them or do. Basically, they're saying you're lazy and you're not trying hard enough. And the thing about the learning disability side as well is I hate when they do this because it's not fair. It hurts so many people. It hurts autistic people who have a learning disability, and it hurts people who have a learning disability and are not autistic, and people who are autistic without learning disability. That's nobody's fault within them in terms of it's all these kind of labels and all that they're just trying to throw out just to fit you in to suit their agenda rather than looking after people. Because I do recall having conversations, within ourselves and over the years about autism and the learning disability label and the other labels that have been, or the other descriptions that have been used for that. And it's so very damaging. And the thing that's also pissing me off, it's like they're calling it a trend. Certainly the media and the people like Eura Frith don't help, although she's not the only one. It's like, oh, people are just jumping on the bandwagon to suit their agenda. And it's, there's so much that can be said, but basically my point is it's hurting so many people and it's so unfair. It's trying to say that life is too bloody easy. Life should be difficult, life should be misery. And if you're an autistic person and your life is not complete misery, well, they're not really autistic. That's how it appeals to. That's how it appears to me. What people are saying, or some people are saying.
You know what I think? I think that people like those people are afraid that maybe they don't even know what autism is. They focus so much on the learning disability part, they completely cannot explain autism without it. And that is what autism is, the part that they've not addressed, they've not explained, and they're not even treating. They just continue to treat something like the learning disability. I could be wrong, but we're not getting anything out of our diagnosis. It's not helping us. It just helps us to understand who we are. We don't benefit in some way that they think we're on some bandwagon about. We're not.
I think there's a bit of truth in what you're saying there, Teresa. It's the lack of control. every time I've dealt with autism professionals, I've observed their need for control. And however much they say to us that lived experience is important, it's only lived experience when it's in their setting and under their terms. There's a reluctance to actually listen fully to autistic people from most professionals. There are always exceptions, and it's those exceptions that are making a difference to our lives, and we thank those people for it. There's also a long-term issue of politics here, and it's to do with the autism moms, a stereotype which goes a bit like this: a mum fighting for the rights of their child who is profoundly autistic, and autistic in a way that is dangerous and destructive, perhaps even violent. And that mom is in a struggling situation with a very difficult child, and if they are neurotypical themselves, they become white savior warriors for a type of autism that is familiar to them. So when adult autistic people formulate an idea of autism as a identity rather than as a disability, there's a fear amongst a lot of those people who have been working a long time out there, that we will water down the possibilities for their children, that us being out here looking intelligent and getting on with our lives is going to destroy what they've actually achieved so far. It goes a lot with the ABA world in the America, and it goes a lot with trying to get charities to see autism, and see autism is through making autism a terrible destructive disease, and that's how they get their money. So it's unfortunate that there is a tension between people like us that are late diagnosed and have been masking and dealing with our lives and compensating, and the people who can't. However, we had a lovely experience with thriving beyond the labels, and that's a parents' organisation that is very, very inclusive of autistic people. And so I think we should bring them back onto Autistic Radio and show their model as an example.
Just to add to the topic is what Pete Womby shared in the post as well. And he says, imagine that we first found out about cheese. It was on a big plate of chips. A doctor comes along and says, oh look, these chips have something on them. I'll call it cheese. Then someone sees some cheese on its own, or on a sandwich, or a lovely jacket potato. They say, oh look, there's some cheese too. The doctor is unconvinced. No, they say, this is not cheese, for it is not on any chips. This must be something else, and it has no similarity to the cheese on the cheesy chips over here. Cheese keeps being found all over the place. But no, the doctor says, none of this is cheese. It could only be cheese if there are chips. You are broadening the concept of cheese too far. It will be meaningless. This is a metaphor for Jutta Frith's argument. What's your thoughts?
Everybody needs a history lesson. Almost every discovery can have this done to it. Like take archaeology. Once I don't know, people in an ivory tower get their hands on it, they say a fact is a fact. And then the further along we go and the more we learn about it, we realize, oh, you were wrong. And it's only the really, really intelligent ones who will even come out of retirement in their 80s to go on an academic tour to say they were wrong, and they see how this new research changed their theory. These people are not brave. The moms are a whole different story. They can be forgiven because they've got a lot to be dealing with, and they're relying on people like the people who should be more scientific and just do the research again.
I would like to identify as cheese. I'm autism without anything other on top. Just autism.
You're like the keto, the no carb autism.
Ray, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce what you're meaning on your chat.
No, it's a thoroughly autistic thing where you have the unsent text message, right, lying there, and you forget that it's lying there, and then you write another text message, and it inserts itself right in the middle of the first one. So, yeah, I was going to say we are a challenge to their control, but I didn't send it, as is my want. So, the one that got inserted in the middle was autistics love metaphors. So, you know, you can be chips or you could be a baked potato when you're a cheese. But it makes me think back to that lovely bit in Pulp Fiction, you know, when the experience I had when I first went to Amsterdam and I found you could have these pommes frites, these chips with mayonnaise on them. That was just a whole entirely new concept for me.
Yeah, I was in, I think it was Rotterdam, and I went up to the stand, and they put like the French fries in a cup, and then they were just about to put mayonnaise all over them, and I was going, no, 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 and they just looked at me like I was mad because they have mayonnaise all over them, and that to me is it smacks of Satan's work.
That's probably what they think about vinegar.
Or ketchup.
You got to have chips with a bucket full of vinegar and a shovel full of salt. Sod your cholesterol, just go for it.
That's what it's like in Canada. My mother used to float potato chips in a bowl of vinegar.
Have baked potato shops gone out of fashion? I'm only thinking that because earlier I was thinking about, photo developing shops, with the rise of digital cameras and all that, Are there ever, are there still places where you can use an old fashioned camera and get your photos developed? Or, next door there'd be a baked potato shop and possibly a laundrette or clothes cleaning company.
We have all those things, but I don't think we ever had a baked potato shop. Do you mean like baked potatoes from in an oven? Or do you mean French fries?
No, baked potatoes of all varieties.
I've never seen one in my life. Did the microwave put them out of business or something?
I honestly don't know the answer to that.
I think what just happened is it got too intense.
Round here, we had a Kentucky Fried Chicken and it went bust, and we had a Subway and it went bust. And generally, we're not allowed to have uh, any fast food places round here because we're on the edge of the forest, and the concern is over the litter.
Moving on. The next post is from Perth's. The next post is from Perth Autism Support. It's a charity organisation supporting autistic children, young people and families throughout Perth and Kinross since 2011. A registered Scottish charity based in the UK. And they've shared some pictures and what they say, other than their wonderful trip to the National Museum, our children's team got up to lots of fun activities in their 4th week of the summer programme. They went out to play in the park, enjoying the various playground equipment, as well as doing sports, including football. They also hosted a movie night. The kids chose Shrek to watch, and everything was set up outdoors for an al fresco movie experience. Of course, snacks and drinks were a must. For those less interested in movies, they could play in the garden with a ball and other toys. Finally, the weekly activity day was another big success, as usual, with lots of fun, sensory activities, and movement and exercise. What's people's thoughts? The reason it was shared was there's so many things that could be shared. But I was trying to lighten things up a little bit because there's so many things. It's been quite, really intense stuff that's in the media without the artistic world, so to speak. So I just found that this was more relaxed, and it kind of reminded me much of my childhood. Not of being involved in such a charity as this, because I wasn't diagnosed as autistic in childhood, but an inclusive place and the activities that I used to be interested in as well.
I think it looks like a lot of fun, very relaxing, and really good timing for you in the order you curated this in. I I would say it would have been nice if when we were kids they had different options for summer programs, because I found I was always dreadfully, dreadfully homesick in a any kind of summer program I was sent to. But that this one seems geared towards very relaxing things that you can do and have the choice of not doing the exact, the main activity. Like, I think this was very positive in my opinion.
I don't think I would have taken part in this as a young person. I think I would have seen it as a whole group of spazzes that I didn't want to be part of. As a spaz myself, I identify as a spaz. It's it's good though that other people have options, and maybe somebody should have taken me by their hand and made me try something that I didn't immediately want to go to. Maybe giving people not just the option by saying, do you want to go to this, but say, oh, we're going to this, and you can opt out when you get there, but actually going along to it. Because I remember being an autistic person who it's taken a whole lifetime broadening my horizons and opening myself up to options, and my natural childhood self would probably have immediately said no, and I would have missed out, because as you say, these people do look as though they're having fun. It does look as though it's been organised in a way that has their interest at heart and maybe their input into it.
Look at that photo. What is that climbing frame thing? Did we used to call the one that used to rotate a witch's hat? I don't think that's a mobile one though.
Yeah, we had a witch's hat, and it used to swing around and smash you in the jaw, and people used to break their arms. They used to fall from the top of it. People get concussion off it. Yeah, it used to be a lovely, dangerous thing.
Great at 4 a.m. in the morning when you're coming back from a party.
Didn't they have the horse version of that as well? This big sort of swinging horse that you just had to hang on to for dear life so you didn't get thrown off. That's the sort of thing I used to do when I was little. Nothing was organised. But I was going to say that this kind of reminds me of my very early years when I used to go to a 1 o'clock club. And I remember very, very, very well going in there and being in a group but quite solitary. You know, there was little play areas and I could go and play in the sand or play in the water, and I guess that was really good socialisation for me when I was a little one, because I was quite a loner. I was one of those ones that sat in the garden and dug up the worms, and so I mean something like this I probably wouldn't have wanted to go to something organised, but yeah, it's nice, it's good to see.
I used to chase people with worms and poo.
I think things like this, I mean, if the children go along and it's good for them, it's good for them. But I would imagine it would be would help with the parents. It might take pressure off the parents for a couple of hours if they know their children are in a friendly, accepting environment, and hopefully they don't end up like with with Ray attempting to break each other's jaws on the climbing equipment. But maybe the parents, it's a couple of hours where the pressure's off of them as well.
Sorry, my buttons are acting weird here. I'm just loving the texture on the cushions there and that kind of group scene, watching the video or whatever.
Yeah, I feel like they thought about all of those things, but I could be wrong. And the reason I came up with this idea that it looked like more fun is because I was sent to these day camps. Everybody knew I could never have done a sleepover camp, but my sister loved them and I would just be dying all day. I hated it, but I feel like I might have liked this. But it's not for everybody.
I've noticed people sitting on benches there, and it made me think about this news article this week about the guy who collects photographs of benches and marks them out of 10. And he eventually found a 10 out of 10 bench last month.
Yeah, the 10 out of 10 bench was where he sat to have his photos taken with his new bride, wasn't it?
Beautiful story.
I don't think a special interest or a special hobby of classifying benches is diagnostic, but it's it makes you wonder whether he might be one of us.
At times, I truly believe we are just stories that are being told, and the best of us learn how to create those stories.
I used to work at Ordnance Survey, and there's trig points, and there are people that obsess about trig points. They're like those concrete pillars, short concrete, like a dragon's tooth pillar, and some of them obsess about visiting them and keeping them maintained and all that.
I feel like I live in an autistic neighborhood the more I think about that, because pillars here, we decorate them and everything. This summer, it's been applying Lego to the outside of all of the utility poles. And so it got so popular that they started putting in new poles with no other purpose than to build Lego around them. And I think the city put them in because they like it. Isn't that weird?
I feel totally alienated by Lego. I don't know what that says about me.
The next post is from Thriving Autistic, who are a non-profit organisation, neuro-affirmative non-profit by and for the autistic and neurodivergent community. And they were sharing this post on the group Neuro Pride Ireland supporters. And they say the following: it is a hard time for our autistic and neurodivergent community at the moment. While we do not respond to every political development or media cycle, we acknowledge that rising misinformation and targeted hostility, particularly toward autistic, ADHD, trans, and wider LGBTQIA+ and Black and global majority communities, have a real and harmful impact on mental health, safety, and access to support. We are with you in solidarity. If you would like further support, please have a look at our neuro-affirming sister organisation, the Neurodivergent Practitioners Network, where you can search our global directory of therapists, coaches, psychologists, relationship specialists, and more. And it shares the website of thrivingautistic.org and the values. I felt this post was quite important to share because of the hostility that people are experiencing at the moment, which has already been described. What are people's thoughts?
I think I take two things from this. First, there exists an organisation where people who identify themselves as neurodivergent are professionals and practitioners of various qualifications, and they are in a group and you can find them. And that might be a choice that suits a lot of our listeners. And then the second thing is about the actual post itself. And the post itself is that gentle reminder that we are in a culture war. and we have a society where there's been a swing of the pendulum against the idea of diversity inclusion. There are fascists who are getting themselves into the mainstream so that they can other groups of people and set them once against each other and point out that various groups are the problem. Either they're a problem because they cost economically, or they're a problem because they come from outside. There have been riots in Northern Ireland, 2 days of riots that was a community of people against immigration. And that's an appalling thing that we're seeing, like the 1930s. I want to say something else, though. I am now part of a minority because I'm autistic. There might be only 10% of people who are neurodivergent. But if you add up all the different groups that are marginalised as percentages, if you're in a marginalised group, you are in the majority. People who are not in marginalised groups are the minority. Black, white, disabled, different sexualities, different ethnic groups, all added together, we are in the majority.
That's right. That's exactly why they're upset with us. And that's why they were upset in the past, too.
So that puts Trump and fascists in the minority. They have influence and people will be pulled along by them misguidedly, but they are in the minority.
Yes, totally agree. I just find it so angering and so hurtful, and all these different emotions that this has to be fought against or thrown back again, whatever, because I'm kind of being automatic on the the post itself. Not just the post itself, but what's been described yourself, Jules, but what has been shared and what people are aware of. It's like someone said to me, I can't remember who, but they're saying that because things have become so inclusive, some people won't accept about including certain sections of society for their own prejudices or whatever it is. So there's always going to be some kind of kickback, and they're going to try and reverse everything back to what they believe is supposed to be so called normal and the right way forward, which I think we all know is feels. Oh, I'll say it, we'll go back a bit there, Sadie. I know from my perception, from my viewpoint, it's totally ridiculous because the world is not like that. But there's people that trying to make the world like that, putting people down, being a hierarchy, saying that some sections of society are actually better than another, saying one person is more important than another person. And I find that terrifying, angering, all sorts of emotions. And it always has to be hit back. But as well as that, you need to bring out words of support as well, because it does become very tiring, especially when the media appear to be in certain countries. I mean, I can only go by the British media and sometimes maybe the American media, because I don't focus on all the media. It's just some that kind of throw on you or throw on me, through social media, whatever. There always seems to be that sort of thing. And the thing that really annoys me, it's like people hurting other people, and I find that incredibly, intense, frustrating. All those things, other things I could even say as well. But it's good to know there's support out there, rather than people feeling that they're alone. And if people do feel alone, it's good to be sharing information that, listen, you're not alone. Someone's out there and can help. But it's worrying times.
Harry, it's like anger management, isn't it, out there on a kind of cultural scale? But also, I put in the text there Greenock because that came up in local news. Greenock, near your part of the world, which is historically a very famous place, given that it was part of like what major ship production and stuff, various other industries, is apparently a dying town now. Everybody's leaving it because there's no uh, industry or business or economic, health. And so what they're doing is they're asking immigrants to come in because immigrants, for some reason, seem to thrive economically. And this is what I see the major guys like Trump and all that, and then people who are in charge of the white male order. Um, they think they're so good at business and economics when they're crap at it, to be honest. What they need is to integrate more people in and bring in diversity. Diversity, there's the word. Because where I live, I see tons of Africans in that, and I'm really attracted by their shops. I really wish I had a reason to go in, and for something to buy. I do go in and sometimes chat with them and stuff, but I dig the music and everything, and it's just like they're thriving because they're needed amongst their own community. But if we get integrated and we share, then you see these things happening over the decades. You end up getting very used to other people's cultures and they become a part of your culture. And so people thrive in a poor area and make it better, make it economically viable again. So I just wondered if you've seen that thing about Greenock, Harry.
No, I have not. But I'm certainly welcoming, for people to come in and help out, and being in the position that I'm in is feeling different from childhood. Um, Anybody that's looked upon as different and it's like an alternative sort of thing, I'm always welcome to. Not that I'm not welcome to anyone. I mean, I've been brought up the way that, you respect people and you're not racist or sexist or whatever, prejudiced in any way. I mean, I've been brought up that way. The thing about autism, though, or my autism, I should say, the way about my autism, though, is it's very restricted and on the things that I do and things that I want to do. So sometimes when there's new things, and it doesn't need to be other cultures, it can be within even my own so-called culture, it's like I don't identify with it or I don't, access it. Not because I don't think I don't like it, it's just something that doesn't suit. But I'm always, when it comes to other cultures, I like when you sometimes hear something or read something that's totally different, from the so-called norm. Like there's some different cultures towards autism that we've talked about, like tribes, and things like that. I'm sure there was stuff from like New Zealand and Canada that look towards autism as far more positive light than even our own do. It's more like it's magical, it's this, it's that. It might sound a bit more patronising, but it's positive. And it's just like embrace difference, embrace change, embrace it's like the individualism of the world itself, as long as it doesn't hurt others.
It does sound hard, Harry. This is a global trend that's going on right now. Just be careful where you get your news. I have a 5 minute a day audio only, very credible, like where I choose the news source. It is not choosing some wacky news source or anything. just try not to overexpose yourself to. Well, in Canada, we don't get news from social media. It won't show up on social media in Canada. Like if you or somebody from the United States or somebody posts news, we can't open it. It just says this isn't available here. Not even our own news, because they don't believe that, because they believe it becomes this weird tunnel where you can, I think you know what I'm trying to get at here. They just don't believe that's where to get news. Plus also economically, they won't put news on social media because the publishers don't get paid for it, and they believe that if somebody is running a newspaper, the newspaper should get paid for it. So go and subscribe to the newspaper. But it protects us this year and last year, because if we don't end up being fed news that might not be the news we would have chosen. I hope that makes sense. But this happens in history, and progress will still progress after this phase is over. And it's important for organizations like this one has done to say we support you, because there will be some people who feel really hopeless and helpless in times like this. It's a big global trend right now, and it's not a good one. But the world will get past it, and it might go through darker times before it gets past it. But when it does, we will progress again. We will.
And as Ray says in his comments, less cultural corruption, Teresa, an example of social intelligence. Well, thanks everyone. That was great discussion as always, and enjoy the different conversations we had with the different posts that's been shared. I'd like to thank everyone who has been involved in the discussion tonight, and also thank the people that have shared the posts that we have looked at. This is Harry's Facebook for Sunday the 23rd of August 2026, which is part of the Spectrum Voices conversation, which is live every Sunday, 5:55 to 7 p.m. UK time, and available on Facebook and other platforms. So thank you once again. I look forward to next time.